Spencer?
Sure. Hi, and welcome to the conversation. I am Constance.
And I'm Jaleesa.
And we're here to have a conversation with each other and hopefully to draw you into a conversation as well. So please feel free to subscribe or just comment down below, get a conversation going, and let's talk about these things that are on so many people's minds. So, Jaleesa, do you want to talk about what we're going to discuss this evening?
Sure. So we're going to be discussing several things. We're going to be discussing the case in regards to the police officer that shot and fatally killed George Floyd. And then we are also going to be discussing the case of the 20-year-old that was fatally shot during a traffic stop.
Was George Floyd, was he shot? Didn't they just sit on him, basically suffocate him?
Yes, did I say that he was shot?
You did.
Oh, I'm sorry. George Floyd was not shot. He had a police officer kneel on his neck for 9 minutes.
Yeah.
So he was not shot. I misspoken.
I do it all the time. Yeah, horrible. I mean, you got to call it what it was. It was murder.
Right.
We tend to use the word killing, killed, and shot. You know, the truth is those are murders because they're not legal. They're more than just killing someone. They're murders. And, you know, I think part of the thing we've done is just sort of wash it clean, trying to clean it up, calling it killings. You know, when there are mass killings, those people who do mass killings, they're murderers. They murder those people, you know? So I think that if we could just change our vocabulary, everyone, not just you and me, but you know, it would help, because we keep hearing news media saying killings. There was another killing, you know. It sort of softens it a little bit, just a little bit, but that little bit is too much to, you know, these are murders.
Right.
Yeah, so we've got the guy who actually was the main person to hurt George and take his life. He's on trial, but the other guys, what about the other guys? Because we had one guy that was holding people back, and then there were two other guys that were actually on top of him that were behind in the videos you don't see them because they were kind of behind the squad car. But I don't think they were charged, were they?
Not to my knowledge. They're definitely not on trial right now.
Yeah. So I don't know why they wouldn't be accessories, to be honest. You know, they didn't make him stop, and they should have.
Right.
So I learned recently there were a couple of little girls, the ones that testified at the trial, that witnessed what happened. I mean, it just
terrible.
It leaves me absolutely speechless. There's only so much of it that I can watch before I just can't. You know, it's painful, and I just can't imagine what kind of pain his family and friends are feeling, George's family and friends. You know?
Right.
I totally understand why they would want justice. Of course they would want justice, you know? And as far as I'm concerned, it certainly looks like that police officer could have done something. The witnesses' accounts of what happened, you know, it didn't have to be that way.
It didn't. It did not have to be that way at all.
Gut-wrenching. And for the people who were witnesses, I can't imagine being there and not being able to do anything to help him. See this happening and not be able to help him. You know,
I
it's
mean, what do you do in that situation when you see that a police officer is violating someone's human rights? Do you call the police on the police? Do you intervene? If you do intervene, is the police officer going to turn on you? Is he
right.
going to, shoot you with a gun or spray you with pepper spray? Are you going to be charged with interfering with the law?
Hmm.
What do you do in those situations
I don't
besides
know.
take out your camera and film an atrocity?
Hmm. If I was there, I don't even know what I would do. I tend to I go beyond I mean, I'm the person at a city hall meeting that will stand up and interrupt the guys that are out of order.
Mm-hmm.
and and I don't really care about their order. you know,
Right.
if they're doing something wrong, I'm going to say it.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't matter if I'm out of order. And the thing is, though, when something like what happened to George happens, anyone stepping in there would be possibly hurt or killed for doing it,
Right.
you know? So it makes people very hesitant. But they called the people that were standing there a mob. I mean, did you see? There were maybe 15 people. That was a
Yeah, they
real
were
mob.
definitely
What?
definitely not a mob. Definitely
No.
not.
But, the defense was saying that the mob frightened the police officer and that um, I'm like, what mob? That wasn't a mob.
Right.
They should have probably become a mob. Might have made a difference. Might have got more people killed, though. So I don't know if should have is the right phrase to use. Could have, not should have. But I'm concerned that if they find him innocent, I'm really concerned about this country, how the country is going to react.
I'm concerned too, and I know that the United States have a lot of social issues, right? Racism, sexism, um, issues with the LGBTQ community. And I know for even like immigrants that are coming into the country, depending on where they're coming from, a lot of them, or I would say some of them, are even hesitant on staying here. Like, the United States have so many issues, especially if you're a Black immigrant. You're like, well, is it really worth staying in this country? I could be killed on any day. Maybe I should just stay here, do my education, and then go back home. So if immigrants are even questioning their safety in the US, I mean, we really have a big issue.
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, my husband's son, he has a grown son who lives in Japan, and he has lived in Japan for like 20 years now. And he married a Japanese woman, and they have 2 little kids. And when he came back here to the United States to go to his sister's wedding, he didn't bring his wife or kids because he said it wasn't safe for them. And we were like, oh, come on, really? But, with the events that have happened over the last couple of years, I can totally see why he would have said that.
Mm-hmm.
And, they don't have guns over there like we have here. I mean, my son pointed out something to me earlier today when I was talking to him. And it made a lot of sense to me, but it's kind of crazy. back in the Wild West, like in the 1700s, 1800s, if you were riding a horse and came to a town, that they would make you leave your gun outside the town, or you had to turn it in at the sheriff's office. You could not carry around a gun in the town.
Mm-hmm.
That was very normal, you know. Yeah, you can have a gun, you just don't carry it around in town, you know. And now we have these laws that have gone to the extreme, and people aren't safe. We've got people carrying guns around, either, you know, open, out in the open, or they're concealed. I don't know which is worse, concealed or open carry. I don't know. They're all bad. I mean, it's bad either way. And they don't have to turn them in when they go into a town.
Mm-hmm.
So in a way, we're worse off now than back in the days of the Wild West, as they put it. You know, you didn't have people going into schoolhouses and shooting children.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and like I said, you had to turn your gun in when you went into the town. If you were visiting or moving there or whatever, people in the town didn't carry guns, only the sheriff. But I'm to the point now where I even wonder if our law enforcement shouldn't carry guns. Because
Speaking of law enforcement, why is it when they shoot someone, it's as if they're shooting to kill? They're not shooting to disarm. Is that a part of their police training? Oh, someone got away. Let's shoot to kill them. Not let's shoot to disarm them to prevent them from running away.
Yeah, I don't know when that changed, because it did used to be you would shoot to disarm, shoot to, you know, stop them. And now they shoot to kill. And they're like, well, of course we shoot to kill. The answer, I asked someone whose son is a cop, and he said, well, yeah, of course they shoot to kill. It's kill or be killed. If they don't kill them, then that person will kill them. You know, I'm like, really?
But that's not
the
every
way
situation.
Yeah.
It's like the 13-year-old boy in Chicago.
Oh.
I saw the video, and I guess the boy had a gun, and he was running with it. He dropped the gun, and he
was a pellet gun, wasn't it?
Yeah, I think it was a pellet gun. He dropped it. He had his hands up, and that's when the officers shot him. So why are you shooting a 13-year-old with his hands up? He's not a danger to you.
No.
But you shot him to kill him. You didn't shot him in the leg or on the arm to disarm him. You purposely shot to kill a child.
I don't know where we're going.
You know, and these police officers,
it's not okay.
They don't get paid that much, in my opinion, right?
Mm-hmm.
But they wield so much power. You know, when they put on that uniform, they're basically invincible. Oh, no ordinary citizen better not approach them. That's interfering with the law. You can get a charge for that, or you could die from that. You can't approach them. You can't interfere with what they're doing. As soon as they have that uniform on, it's like they're above everyone.
It shouldn't be that way. I don't think it's always been that way. It's gotten out of hand. You know, I mean, it really has. And a case in point is there were a couple of guys from, I think they were from the Netherlands, cops. They were in New York City, and they were on a subway, and a guy, I think he pulled a knife or a gun, I'm not sure. And they were not in uniform, of course. They were there for some kind of conference, but they were police officers from the Netherlands. And they're taught in the Netherlands to de-escalate and disarm. They didn't have weapons. And they tackled this guy and got him down on the ground and got him to give up his weapon and de-escalated the situation within a matter of minutes. And why aren't we doing that? Why is it that we feel we must use a gun or a taser or pepper spray, some kind of weapon, instead of our minds? I mean, so many people have been injured or killed just needlessly. And so often it happens to people who are minorities. And how can they possibly feel that they can excuse that?
It's just crazy. I know in Des Moines, Iowa, they are trying to implement de-escalation training among the police officers there. But the person that's leading the training, apparently he has a long history of excessive violence. Specifically excessive violence against minorities.
Great.
And he has been chosen to lead de-escalation training. I believe his last name is Wong.
See, why would they decide that? Why would they choose that person unless it's supposed to be some kind of lesson for him? Like if he can get to where he can teach it, then maybe it'll sink in that this is what, you know what I mean? But when someone has been on the job that long and they're doing that poorly, I mean, if where I work, my full-time job, if I were to mess up, screw up that seriously, that many times, I wouldn't have a job. You know, it's not okay.
It's not.
And how it can be excused like that. I mean, I know a lot of it has to do with the union. But it makes me question the amount of power that the union has, that they would even want. Why would you want a coworker who does such a bad job? Really? I mean, why would you want that person to be employed with you?
How can a person who has had excessive violence with the people in the community, I mean, with his background, how can he efficiently or successfully lead de-escalation training? It doesn't make sense. And this person, he has a troubled history. He has a troubled background.
That's insane.
And there's been complaints against him, and he's still leading. He's still going to lead de-escalation training.
Did I tell you my son is graduating? He's graduating in May, and his girlfriend is a nurse, and he is a librarian. And I'm super, super proud of him. He's got his master's, and just, you know, he's worked very hard. They've decided that they want to leave Iowa, and they're going to go to Minneapolis. And yeah, they want to live like in the same area where George Floyd was killed. They want to live in that same vicinity, because they feel like they can make a difference. You know, they want to be able to help and make a difference. So, you know, for me, even like the outcome of the trial has personal ramifications because of their plans to move up there. And the concerns I have are more than just, you know, just for our country and for Minneapolis and for communities. It's also a personal thing for me with him going up there, because they're planning on going in, I think it's August.
Yeah.
So anyway, so we also have had some other stuff going on in the news. It's been, we wanted to talk about it earlier, but we've had a couple of roadblocks where we couldn't get on here to do this. So, but I do want to bring up the violence against the Asian community related to the coronavirus, and talk about what's happening as far as like what the African American community, like what their response has been, and maybe let you speak to that a little bit, Jaleesa.
Sure. So, to my knowledge, the response from the African American community has been generally supportive. They stand in unity of the Asian community. And African Americans, they know, or I should say we know, what it's like to be discriminated upon and against. And so the African American community is behind, Asians, and we stand united.
Solidarity.
And I do want to mention the reason why there has been such an uptick in racism towards Asian Americans is due to the coronavirus. Our former president, Mr. Trump, he repeatedly referred to the coronavirus as the China virus. I believe he has even said the Kung Flu virus a couple of times.
The Kung Flu.
Kung Flu virus. And so because of the terminology that he was using, and mind you, there are millions of people that are watching and hearing everything that he says, that helped with the racism towards the Asian Americans that, in my opinion, caused the uptick.
Yep, I agree. In some cases, like I heard about one lady that got beat up, she was Korean. People don't know there's a difference between the different Asian communities. They just sort of lump everyone, white people tend to lump them all into one group. They're Asian, right? And so they just attack them if they look Asian. But
yeah, they don't care if you're really Chinese, Korean, Japanese. You're Asian. If you look Asian, if you have the typical facial features, they don't care.
So again, it makes me wonder, in what world is that okay? Since when is it okay to just attack somebody because they're a certain race? I mean, honestly, it makes me mad. And I feel helpless because I feel like I can't do anything about it,
Right.
I'm worried about what's going to happen at the end of the George Floyd hearings. I don't know if we can withstand that. If they don't find him guilty, they need to find him guilty and put him away for like 25 years.
Guilty of what charge, you think?
Murder.
There's like murder, and then there's manslaughter.
No,
which is
not
different.
manslaughter. It was murder. They knew each other.
But I think for it to be murder, for him to be charged with murder, it has to be premeditated, right?
No, that's only murder in the first degree.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's just first degree murder. So I don't think they can get him on first degree. And isn't he on trial for second degree murder or third degree murder?
I believe so, yeah.
Yeah. So, there's premeditation is first degree murder. Yeah. So worst kind. Yeah. But, I just, like I said, I don't know if they don't find him guilty. I don't know if as a country, if we can withstand the backlash, you know? And it's not just going to be peaceful protests at all. I don't think it will be.
No, it wouldn't be, of course.
And it's, I don't know, Jaleesa, I have watched as things have deteriorated, and also something that I was talking about with my son earlier today and with my husband later was about education and how back during the early part of the century, they started taking history and social studies and government or civics out of the schools. They weren't teaching it anymore. They were just concentrating on reading, writing, and arithmetic, right? Just those things, because those were the tests they had to pass in order for the schools to get more money. And so they stopped concentrating on those things. When I was in school, it was required. And so we've got people that never learned when they were in school about history, our country's history. They didn't learn about our country's government. So they don't know, they only know what they hear in this echo chamber of social media. And I would say 80 to 90% of it's wrong, And I don't think it's because they don't want to know. I think they want to know, but they're being lied to by so many different sources all over the place. And it's where it's got us, But
have you ever seen a picture? There's a picture out there on Google. It's a very powerful image. So you have two men. On the left side, there's a man with welts all over his back from being beaten. He was a slave or an ex-slave. And then on the right, there's a man with gunshots all over his back. So it's one image. One image is of slavery with the welts. One image is of modern day gunshots throughout.
Is it like down the middle of the body? Like on one side of his back is welts, the other side is gunshots.
No, it's like two separate men.
Okay.
Yeah, two guys. And the picture basically demonstrates what as Black people, what we've been going through. And with all of this gun violence and people being shot, this is nothing new. The only thing that's new is the technology. Now it's being filmed. This has been happening, in the 90s, in the 80s, in the 70s, in the 60s,
you don't think it's escalated though, in like the last 5 years?
I think it has always been this way. However, the only difference is that now people have their technology to film it. I think way back in the day, with the policemen and stuff, I think lynchings were more popular, being hung. But now you're being shot. So the method has changed, but people are still being killed. So,
man, when we were driving back from town, we drove through a little town. We live in a small, just for you guys out there, we live in a little town, just 7,000 people. And we were coming back from the big city and we were driving through these little towns, and we went by a house that had a great big blue line flag, and Blue Lives Matter. And we got to talking about that whole thing and how people don't understand. Like you hear people say, generally white people, all lives matter.
Well, they do,
Of
but
course, but if you
all
can't
lives
say
do matter.
it, if you can't say or accept that Black lives matter, then all lives don't matter, you know?
Right.
So, I mean, I feel like until people are able to embrace that part of our humanity, that's,
Mhm.
I mean, sure, all lives matter, but if you can't say Black lives matter, then all lives don't matter. They can't, because Black lives are part of all lives.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, those same people who say blue lives matter or all lives matter, these are the same people that say, well, I don't see color, I don't see
Oh,
race. No,
mm,
I view everyone as the same, which is a lie because
yes.
scientifically, people see color within the first, what, 2 milliseconds
Mhm.
of meeting someone. So,
Yeah, that's a
of course,
ridiculous
you
thing to
see
say.
color. And when you say you don't see color, you're basically dismissing
Mhm.
everything about that
Yeah,
person that's unique.
yes,
You're
yes.
dismissing it.
You are absolutely right. And I've heard so many people that I know say, well, I've never seen color. And I'm like, come
Are
on
you
now.
colorblind?
I'm like, come on. Because I remember there was a diversity training I took way back in the 90s. And
Mm.
it was really good though. They brought in this woman from California who is famous or was famous back then for her training on diversity. She was a Black woman. And I remember one of the questions was she said, so I need a volunteer. And this white guy, middle aged, volunteered. And she said, okay, so I'm going to go meet with one of your friends, and they've never met me before. So you need to describe me to your friend. What would you say? And so he goes on about how she's tall and slim and what she's wearing and the color of her hair. And finally, she's like, why don't you just say that I'm Black? It's part of me. I'm a Black woman. It's part of my identity. It's not insulting or anything else. It's part of who I am. It helps identify who I am. When you're describing me or meeting me, I'm a Black woman. And that was so eye-opening for me when
Mhm.
she said that. It's like, yeah, it's part of our identity, our race, our ethnicity, our country of origin, our physical abilities, our age,
Mhm.
our sexual orientation, who we identify as, all that is part of who we are.
Right.
And to ignore it is ridiculous. And to say you don't see color is ridiculous. To embrace the variances we all have, we're all different. It's a beautiful thing. It makes life so interesting to know
Mhm.
people from other cultures and people of all ages. You and I have a big age difference. We're pretty good friends, I think. And it enriches our lives to have friends from all different kinds of backgrounds and even educational levels and everything. It's just I would not have it any other way. Life would be so boring.
Right.
you
Right.
know
Mhm.
so yeah, I just think that people need to maybe stop and think and do a little bit of self-examination. I mean, um, the thing is, do you want to do the right thing?
Mhm.
You know, do you want to do what's right? There are people out there, for example, who are fundamentalist Christians. And I used to be one. I'm not a fundamentalist anymore, but I am a Christian. And there are passages in the Bible, especially in the New Testament. Jesus said that the most important commandment was to love God. And the second most important was to love your neighbor. And your neighbor is everyone.
Right.
And the kind of love he was talking about was agape, which is like brotherly love, you know, love of humanity, compassion. And so if you would just look at your actions and think about what you're thinking, what are your thoughts? And are they in line with what Jesus said about the most important commandment and the one that was second most important? Are you being loving? And if the answer is your actions are not an expression of love, there's something wrong. And you need to really step back and self-examine. And I mean, I screw up all the time when it comes to this sort of thing. But I keep trying, you know. I get angry, you know, I can be mean, you know, but I always have to go back to that. Am I being loving? You know, and I think that's a even if you're not a Christian, the golden rule, we all know it, you know, love your neighbor. It's real simple. So, are you motivated by love or hate? You know, are you motivated by love or greed? You know, what's your motivation? And should you change it? So,
Good question to ask.
Anyway, well, do you have anything else you want to add before we finish up?
Well, I think we had a thorough discussion today. It's just all the racism. It's just everywhere, you know. It's tiring.
It is.
And I remember I was reading an article on Facebook. There was a shooting in Waterloo, Iowa, at a club, and no one was hurt. Someone just shot at the club, but
that's good.
There were people inside of it, but no one was hurt. And I was reading the article, and then I read the comments, and there was a lot of comments about Black on Black crime, like, oh, there's why do they keep shooting each other, and you know, it just doesn't make sense. There's so much Black on Black crime. Look at Chicago. And okay, this is Waterloo, Iowa. No one's referring to Chicago, but look at Chicago. Everything is messed up over there. And so that was what a lot of comments were like. But then there was one response to a comment. So this lady, she said, well, the reason why, you know, there tends to be Black on Black crime in certain areas is because of several things, because of racism, post-generational trauma due to racism, poverty, and a whole slew of other things as well. And so with what's going on in today's world with police brutality against African Americans, and also the bias and discrimination towards Asian Americans, this is going to be post-generational trauma. This is going to attribute to that.
Yeah. I think that too, you can't really, like, I can't force anybody to do anything. I can ask and I can try it and I can just talk about the truth or whatever, but I can't make anybody do anything. Ultimately, each of us we can only make ourselves do things, right? And so for those people who are saying that, I would say, stop pointing that finger, you know, and take care of your own self. You know, do what you need to do to lift other people up and encourage other people.
Right.
and be happy for other people.
Mm-hmm.
Be joyful when other people attain things. You know, we are only ultimately, no one can make me do anything. Only I can make me do things, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, so I, to be so critical and write up a comment like that, they must have been very, the motivation was there, you know, to point the
Mm-hmm.
finger.
Yep.
And it's like, you know, maybe you should stop pointing those fingers and just do a little self-examination and see if there's a room for improvement. You know,
Yep.
self-improvement.
Mm-hmm.
But anyway, well, I guess we're near the end, so we'll wrap it up. Please be sure to make your comments and subscribe, because we're going to be doing more things like this. And we just want to have the conversation with you and with each other about what's going on in our lives, and see if we can make this a better place. This little speck of dust floating in a beam of light.